Hi, this is Kevin. Welcome to the final part of my tutorial on conceptual data modeling, and this one is going to be about evaluating the model and deciding, are we done? Are we done yet? So, as part of that, I want to just harken back to some of the content from my lecture on conceptual data modeling. And one big part that I talk about is the final part, the conceptual data modeling process, right? And so first of all, you have to make sure that you have identified the stakeholders and you get the right people involved in the process. Second of all, you want to consider all the inputs, and in particular, um, things like process models for the system that you're developing, look at the existing system, and Andy Apple talks about generic models and patterns. There's also data models that are available even on the web from industry associations and those kinds of people. Okay. Uh, you want to make sure that you work with the participants to elicit and document the requirements. So things like interviewing, examining existing systems and documents, brainstorming sessions like the ragbag exercise that we practice at the beginning of this assignment. Okay. And then finally, the activity that we're working on now, drawing the conceptual model, right? So we draw the entities, we add the relationships, we add the attributes, we choose the unique identifiers. That's about where we are in the process. Okay? And now we have to decide, are we done yet? In terms of the assignment, are we ready to hand in the assignment? In terms of uh, doing this in your day job, are you done with modeling, right? So I just want to point out that this is an iterative process. Okay, you create a version of the model. Okay, you review the model with the stakeholders. Okay, you get feedback. All right. Uh, on the basis of the feedback and that you get from stakeholders and some kind of analysis yourself, you evaluate the model. Okay, well, what makes a good conceptual data model? Well, in the Andy Apple book, he's got a list of I think 6 or 7 things, and I picked the B3 for us. It has to be complete. Okay, um, you have to be able to look at it and say, yeah, this has everything in it that we've been talking about. It has to be concise, which means you don't want redundant information in it, either in terms of attributes or relationships or to some extent even entities, right? No, no appreciable redundancy. Okay, and then it has to support the requirements, right? It has to support the functional and non-functional requirements of the system. Okay, that's how you know whether you're done yet. If you can, if after drawing a version of the diagram and showing it to stakeholders and getting their feedback and looking at yourself, you are satisfied on all three of these issues, then probably you're done. And maybe it's time to either hand in the assignment if this is a school assignment, or move on to the next phase of the project if you're doing this in your day job and uh, you know you want to move on with life. Okay, so let's think about this in terms of just what we've been working on the tutorial, right? So here's the model as of the last time that we changed it when we were adding the attributes and identifiers. And I've only seen one mistake so far. Um, Up here, the last things that we did is we took semester, instead of having a semester name, we gave it relationships to year and period. And the relationship to year is called has year. That's fine. The relationship to period is called has semester. That's a typo. I think it should say has period. Okay. All right. So now that's been fixed. All right. So what things did we talk about? Is it complete? Okay. Does it allow for all the functionality that we have? Yeah. So here's what you do. Okay. Um, if you're in some kind of a systems analysis phase, you probably have some documents that are embodiments of the requirements. And for the functional requirements, it might be um, use cases. If you're taking a more traditional approach, it might be user stories. If you're taking an agile approach, okay, look at each of those and say, is there sufficient information in the model to support those actions? Okay. Um, Another thing that I suggest to people sometimes is this. Uh, if you look at the features of the system as embodied in use cases or user stories, um, you can you can kind of see the state of the system changing over time. Okay, in terms of this one here, the state of the system, we either have a course section or we don't. Okay, the course section either has students that are registered for it, or we haven't put that information in yet. Uh, we either have a bunch of class meeting instances or we don't. Okay, uh, we've either recorded attendance at class meetings or we haven't. Okay. So I think what you want to do is kind of think through how the state of the data store that we implement from the model, how's that going to change over time? And uh, do we have enough features in the data model for us to be able to determine the state as we go from state to state to state? Okay. That's another way of asking yourself, can you support all the features that you want to support? Okay, so if that's true, yes, it's complete, and yes, you can support all the functionality. Is it concise, right? Well, uh, we don't want obvious duplicate facts in the database. Okay, and this is especially important for us with our sort of iSchool pedigree, right? Um, there are people who create conceptual data models that have, for instance, attributes that are redundant in some sense. They put the attribute on the data model even though it can be derived or inferred from other attributes. Okay? We're not going to do that. Why? Well, because we're information scientists. Okay? The same for the relationships. Do we have extra relationships that allow us to deduce a fact more than one way? Okay? Those are redundant too. I try to emphasize relationships in data models are represent the opportunity to record first-class facts, the same as do attributes. Okay, so we don't want relationships that are duplications of facts we can get from other relationships. We don't want attributes that are duplication of facts we can get from other attributes. We don't want relationships that are duplications of facts we have from attributes. So we want this thing to be boiled down and concise. Okay, that's what we're looking for. So if you look at this and you believe that you've come this far, okay, and you're done, well, then you're done. If you have consulted with your stakeholders and they don't convince you otherwise, okay? And in terms of the assignment that we're working on now in our class, well, when you've convinced yourself, then you're probably done. Could you show it to a colleague and ask them, what do you think? You think I'm done? Well, that's okay. That's certainly fair. And they're allowed to give you some hints. Ideally, it'd be good if they were to ask you some question like, can you do this? Can you do that? Is this a duplication of this? Is this a duplication of that? Okay. So you can kind of simulate consulting with stakeholders. But when you reach the point when you think you're done, then you're done. Okay, so I'm looking forward to the people who are working on the assignment that these tutorials are for. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do. It's always interesting. The discussion's a lot of fun. So I'm going to say goodbye until then. Bye-bye.